Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 276 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed Victoria Angelhart. She is not only a musician, but also a trained intimacy coach. I've never had an intimacy coach on this platform before, but Victoria and I connected on a Facebook group for podcasters probably at the beginning of the year, and we ended up scheduling the podcast in the spring. So we've had this kind of planned out in advance for a while, and we were finally able to make it happen this week. And very interesting, unique conversation. Victoria talked about her experiences, kind of her introduction to music, but also how her becoming a songwriter and musician was all directly related to some of the things she's went through overall to get to where she is today. And mostly she talked about her intimacy coaching, how she uses music to help heal different individuals and really get in touch with their sexuality and just different parts of themselves as a human being. And it's very interesting stuff. Like I said, I've never, been able to see the parallels like I saw, in this episode between intimacy and the art of music. But Victoria is doing a great job helping a lot of different people, and not only, helping people, but sharing her experiences, being very vulnerable in her music and on this interview today. And I really appreciate her for that, and I admire what she does and the work she's doing. So definitely go tap in with her. If any of this stuff in this episode resonates with you, definitely get in touch with her and see, how you guys can work together and collaborate. But again, thanks to Victoria for stopping by this week. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Episode, Victoria, we have the guest kind of give some background, kind of just introduce yourself. For those that might not know you and what you do, and obviously you wear multiple hats, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Victoria Angelhart. I live in Berkeley in California, and I call myself a passionate pleasure permissionary. And that shows up in a lot of different ways. I feel very multifaceted. I call myself a creatrix of love and liberation. And so I channel music that is really meant to give people the messages that they need in the moments that they need to hear them. I love being able to give people permission through my songs to feel their feelings, to connect with the divine, and to really be able to feel a sense of something that unites us, that greater sense of love, really.
Yeah.
And then in my professional work, I pull in a lot of music. I do performance anxiety coaching for people who are also musicians, and then for people who have performance anxiety in the bedroom. So I'm trained in somatic sex education and sexological body work, and I do EFT tapping. I call my method Tap Into Freedom. And so I help people to really basically get through the blocks that are keeping them from living the happiest, most fulfilled, pleasure-filled, purposeful life that they can.
I have to ask, because you said you're based in Berkeley. I don't know if you're from Berkeley, but I would assume that the passion for music kind of came from being in Berkeley, because obviously that's a big art capital and kind of art place and music place. So did music come first, or did intimacy coaching come first? Which was kind of the first avenue for you, and did one kind of lead to the other?
Well, I'm not from Berkeley.
Okay.
I grew up in Kentucky, but my dad was a radio DJ, and my grandpa was a college music professor, and my grandma was the church organist. And so music has been in my blood since before I was conceived. And so I've been singing in a professional children's choir since I was 9. I studied music in college. I did a lot of musical theater. I studied church music as well. I went to a Christian school when I was growing up. I was very into the divine, the sacred through song and through sound. And so I studied at Oxford in England. And when I was there studying theology, I decided I couldn't be a Christian anymore, but I could still appreciate the music. But I couldn't be a part of a religion that was telling me that something that I knew I have blue eyes. I can't change that. I also feel, I call myself pansexual, but at the time I identified as more bisexual. And that was told to me that was taboo and off limits. And the church said that I was going to hell because of that. And so that's sort of how my quest into the world of intimacy got started, was this like having to redefine who am I outside of the society that I grew up in, outside of the religion that I grew up in, and in a world where I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing or who I was. And I'd never been taught anything about boundaries or consent. And that I will credit Berkeley a lot for the counterculture here and the culture of consent and radical accessibility, all of that, and sexual freedom and liberation in the Bay Area and San Francisco. Like, that's really had a big influence on me.
For sure. Well, I got to commend you on just the bravery it takes to be able to do that too, because I think a lot of people kind of go through kind of similar experiences too, especially growing up. If you grow up in the church especially, it's like you're kind of taught certain things, and you got to think of like how easy it is to conform to everything you hear as a child too. And it takes like a lot to say, no, I kind of want to go my own path, kind of forge my own way, and kind of figure out who I am as an individual. So I think that's something to kind of tip your hat to yourself on as well. I think that's a big thing. And was there like a specific like moment where you felt you were kind of breaking through to be able to, go out on your own and kind of do that in your own way? Or were there any struggles too?
I had a really intense day. I was engaged to a man who had been deployed twice in the Iraq War, and he had PTSD, and he was very violent and very abusive. And I grew up around abuse and with an abusive father, and with abuse really rampant in the community that I was in Kentucky. So I had no idea that was bad or unusual, or that there was anything wrong with that, until I moved to New York to work for Teach for America. I did Teach for America as a core member, and then I was working for them, and I was surrounded by people who showed me what healthy relationships looked like, and they modeled to me how to be authentic, how to be true to myself, and how to be unapologetically me. And when I was there, gay marriage was still illegal in Kentucky at the time, so I hadn't really met a lot of gay people. I didn't really have many out friends. I didn't really have a concept of anything other than like the straight white hetero church going humans. And so as I was in New York, it was in the summer, and I had this experience of just like the doors getting open wider and wider. And then I woke up, and it was a very auspicious day. If you believe in numerology, it was 7/7/14. And that day I call it my authenticity birthday, because it was the day I woke up and decided I can't lie to myself anymore. I am not attracted to this man I'm engaged to. I'm only getting married because my family wants me to. I really want to have sex with a girl and just see what that's like. I really want to like be authentic. Like, I don't want to live in Kentucky for the rest of my life. I don't want to follow all these rules, and there's so much more to the world that I want to see and know and experience. And so that was the day that I chose basically to sort of give up my entire family, my whole world that I had had for almost 24 years at that point, and choose instead to be true to myself.
Yeah. Well, based on my math, I'd say that's 11 years then, since that all kind of went down. So 11 years on this journey. And again, congrats to you, because again, it's not something that I think everybody does. You know what I mean? It's not something that obviously, I feel like everybody has the choice to do things like that. It's just like people might not get to the point where they feel the courage to do so. So it definitely takes a lot, and just to be able to go through that is remarkable to see, being able to look back on where you were and to where you are now. It's obviously a huge thing. So congrats on that, for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to know, how does your music kind of fit in to all of this stuff? And how does, let's say, your songwriting and the songs you put out, how do they directly kind of feed into what you do through intimacy coaching? Because you mentioned at the beginning, they're almost connected in a way. So I'm kind of curious to know, how are they connected and what are the parallels between the two and how do they kind of feed off one another?
Yeah, well, you asked me so many questions. Let's see if I can pull it back together.
Yeah.
My music career started, well, actually, even before that, when I was feeling into what it would mean to have an authentic life, what I was really basing that on was actually the work of Buddhism and learning. There was a book that I read called the Great Course on Mindfulness. And when I started practicing mindfulness, my whole life started changing. I was happier. I was sleeping better. My insomnia went away. My depression went away. I felt like I was in control of my thoughts instead of being controlled by them. I had this radical shift in my well-being on the inside. And it was no longer about what was happening on the outside. It didn't matter what the external circumstances were. It was I got to be able to control my own weather. And so that was sort of these things all in a wild way tied together because I got introduced to the work of Ram Dass, who became my spiritual teacher. And I ended up moving to Maui to live and be a part of his community. And my second week on Maui, I had the weirdest, wildest, most magical experience of my whole life where I put my feet in the Iao River and I could hear songs.
Wow.
And my dad has had a radio show for 25 years, and part of it is called The Songwriter's Search. And he tells the stories of songs that the same person wrote that were usually performed by other artists, but he tells the backstory of the songwriters. And although I've been immersed in my dad's music show forever, I'd never ever considered myself a songwriter, and I'd never even considered that there was a world in which I could write songs. And so in that moment, I just grabbed my phone and just started word vomiting, and I wrote 7 songs and a spoken word that day, just one after another. And then I went back to the only musician I knew on Maui, and I was so terrified. And I was I think I wrote a song and I want to sing it to you, but I'm so scared. And so I made him go in a closet in the dark for me to sing to him. And I sang my very first song. And then when it was over, my heart was pounding. I was so sweaty. And I was oh my God. And he turned on the light and he looked at me and he was yeah, you're a musician. Come with me. And he put a guitar in my hands and was play.
Wow. It's a great story too, because I think it kind of goes to show how if you let everything kind of come organically too, you kind of just get led to the right place at the right time too. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened for you on that day, for sure. Just kind of getting led to that.
And what I haven't really spoken too much is after leaving the church and after becoming a Buddhist, I really went down this path of more integrated spirituality, where instead of it was I could feel connected to God, the universe, the divine, whatever name you want to give it. It started to become very palpable in my meditations and very accessible. And then I had a spiritual teacher who I had this crazy sort of awakening experience with, and when she kissed me on the forehead, it's called Shaktipat. I now know. At the time I had no fucking clue what it was. And all I felt was just this profound love that just poured out of me. And in that moment, I knew that my life purpose was to be a conduit of love and an instrument of grace. And so when I think about songwriting and the whole how I became an artist, it really does come straight from this sense of being a conduit. I say I'm a song catcher and a song carrier, because it's that songs are coming through me and out of me, but I don't sit down and take a pen and pencil and a pen and paper and just decide blah, 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 this is my song. It's not like that. It's just I play a few chords and I listen and I open my heart, and from that place of connection to divinity, connection to love, I either give myself the message I need to hear, or oftentimes these days I actually write the songs that my clients need to hear. And that's been really beautiful. And I know you also asked me how does my music tie into my intimacy work? And I would say the biggest way that they tie together is I I take people into really deep healing spaces. I also do a lot of work with psychedelics. I'm trained in ketamine assisted therapy and using psilocybin for like PTSD and other sort of healings. And so I found that many of my clients lacked something that I had also lacked earlier in my life, which was a deep sense of safety and trust in myself, that I was seen, that I was loved, that I was heard. And so through the EFT tapping, where you like touch the different parts of your body and you process emotionally, at the end of one of those sessions, I channeled this song that was called Safe With Me. And I channeled it as the if in parts work with Dick Schwartz, he calls it the capital S self. It's like who you really are. And so I channeled my big self singing to all the parts of me that didn't feel safe to be seen or heard and loved. And then it really stuck, and I started realizing that as I was doing sessions with clients that they also had this deep need to feel safe. And so the song says, all of you is safe with me, safe to be seen, heard, and loved. All of you is safe with me. And so that sort of started my path of singing to my clients in sessions, because it was like I was getting the messages that they would need in order to have access to the parts of themselves that wanted to shift or heal.
Yeah. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. And it goes to show too, like it shows the power of that energy being able to flow through one person into the other person too, and just the energy transfer. Because I've always believed that that's a big thing, is like surrounding yourself with the right energy can go a long way too. So I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about here, where it's like you're letting that kind of go through you into these other people, and then they can then transfer it hopefully to the next person, and just kind of continue it on from there. And I know, you know, just from looking at your website and what you do, you work with a lot of different types of people too, a lot of different types of individuals. So I guess I would have to assume that everybody's journey to get to you is a little different, but maybe their journey through what you do as an intimacy coach is also different. So how do you approach each individual's journey? Is it always like the same starting point and then you kind of lead into different things, or do you approach it each individual as their own journey and just kind of see where it goes?
Well, I would say that it differs between genders, and I also want to name that I'm like not speaking of people who identify as trans or non-binary, but oftentimes I work with people who identify as male and female, and when I work with men, the route in that way is very frequently through teaching them mindful masturbation. Most men come to me because they're struggling with premature ejaculation, or they're struggling with erectile dysfunction, or they're just like addicted to porn and feeling unsatisfied with their sex life, and they really want to believe and know and experience that there's a different way to have intimacy and pleasure. And so I have a pretty, I call it confident lover training. And it's like a whole process that I do no matter where men come in. I take them through the journey. I do it in person here in Berkeley, but I also work a lot with people on Zoom. And you can actually do it either way, because the whole idea is for men that when you can rediscover a deeper sense of feeling grounded in yourself, in your own body, and a sense of feeling connected to your penis, to your heart, to your head, like letting all those things like be connected outside of needing to have an orgasm or ejaculate, then there's actually so much more spaciousness for you to just actually enjoy the process of being in pleasure, being orgasmic. And so I love getting to guide men in the awakening of I call it their wand of light. And I'll say the other part that does also happen with men is a lot of the emotional healing. Like a lot of men come to me without a very broad vocabulary of emotions. They can say they're mad or sad or like lonely, those kind of basic ones. Yeah. But I use this book that I have. It's called The Language of Emotions. And so I use this other thing called a feelings wheel. And so I teach men actually how to feel their feelings and how to get comfortable expressing their feelings. And then the other thing that I find to be the most important, and this leads back to one of my songs, I was sexually assaulted by a massage therapist on Maui. And then a few years later, I had a music producer that I was kind of informally working with who was sort of coaching me, and he sexually assaulted me. And it was horrible because it was like, and then I called him out on it, and me calling him out on it led to like him closing down that route of me getting into his label. And like he ruined my career by assaulting me, which was like a super fucked up thing. And so I wrote a song that's probably my favorite song. So for everyone listening, pause the podcast and go watch the video on YouTube. It's called Loud, a women's empowerment anthem for sexual assault survivors. And so part of writing that song was reclaiming my own voice. And that's actually how I became an intimacy coach and decided to put that into everything else I was already doing, was because I healed my own deep fear of being heard and being listened to, because I had my no didn't happen in those experiences. My no was just ignored. And so I got to reclaim and re-empower myself as I wrote that song. And it's called Loud, and it says, I will be loud for the ones who do not have a voice. I am loud. I've made my choice. I am not a victim. I am strong. I'm empowered. I'm healing, and I'm free. And so I really love teaching men that they have the power to not harm women, and to teach them what their own boundaries are, and to teach them how to know what their needs are and what their desires are, and then role playing how to ask for them so that they get them met in a healthy way rather than accidentally causing harm. Because like my massage therapist didn't mean to assault me. He just didn't know about consent and boundaries. So I've seen that my work with intimacy has played so much into the songs that I'm writing, and vice versa.
Yeah. It goes to show too, like, why having those conversations is so important as well, because you're able to get ahead of those things early and work on those things, and then, hopefully leave a positive impact on that person moving forward, which is super important. And thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that as well on this show, because I think it's something that people can obviously relate to, or just, hear your experience and be able to appreciate that as well. So thank you for sharing that, for sure.
And that's actually I've transitioned in the last year to working a lot more with women. I was very committed to working with men for several years after my assault, but then I realized that I have all these skills and tools as a woman who was assaulted, who has healed from it. Let me offer them to the women who have had the same experience, because what I have found is that nearly every woman who comes to me has had some form of sexual trauma, whether it was early childhood abuse, sexual assault by a partner or rape. They all have some kind of a story. And if it hasn't happened to them, it happened to their mother, their sister, their best friend. It's so pervasive. And so a lot of the work that I do with women is actually healing their past wounds. And I do this modality that's called tapping out of trauma to really get to the core of where the problem started. I did a session with a woman just a few hours ago who 10 years ago was assaulted, and today was her first day being able to go back into that part of her that fragmented off and got lost and left behind 10 years ago, and actually bring it into the present moment by bringing in empathy and love and acceptance. And so a deep part of my work is giving people, especially women, permission to know that they are not the things that happen to them, but they're actually empowered to use the things that happen to them to be catalysts and tools for more consciousness, more awareness, more love, and for their own healing and for the healing of their children and for the generations to come.
Yeah, for sure. And that just, again, that shows the importance of what you're doing and why it matters so much. Being able to have that impact and affect those people in such a positive way. So I got to say hats off to you for being able to do that and have such a successful time being able to help individuals as well. So thank you for your work, for sure. It's a big thing. Absolutely. And I definitely wanted to know if there's anything you have in the works, maybe coming up. It could be musically or anything in your intimacy coaching that you want to let people know about while we're here.
Well, I have two things that just came out that I want to let people know about. I have two songs that I released this summer that I'm just so delighted that they've been born. One of them is called Fill My Soul with Love, and it's really a fun dancey mantra for anyone who, I like to say, if you're feeling down and you're feeling depleted, just listen to this song, and 4 minutes later you're going to be feeling happy and loved. And so I have that song, and the other song that I just released is actually shifting. There's a group that, if you're not familiar with, I would totally recommend looking into. It's all over the world now, called the Threshold Choir. I was just with the founder of that group. Her name is Kate Munger this weekend, and I got to share my other song with her. And the Threshold Choir is a really incredible grassroots movement to bring songs to the bedside of the dying. And so my new song, Rest My Love, is a lullaby. And my friend Kid Beyond, he was at this songwriters thing this weekend, and he said, this is the lullaby-iest of all lullabies. And so it's now like, I wrote the song as a way of putting myself to sleep when a part of me didn't want to take a nap. And so it was started out as a nap song to just rest and put your weight down and just feel held. But it's turned into an anthem that's being sung at the bedside of the dying. And so it's an incredible gift to get to put out music that can touch a wide spectrum of people's lives at different places.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it goes to show, too, I think that even when you write such a song that you just think it has one meaning, it can be interpreted in different ways and have a good impact on other people, too, which is awesome.
Can I tell you a funny story about that?
Yes, please do. Please do.
So this is wild, and there's part of it's very sad, but it's okay. So I wrote a song after a very passionate tantric lovemaking session called Let Go Surrender. It only has those 3 words. It just says let go surrender over and over again. And so I wrote it from this place of love, and this place, I knew I was going to have to move houses, and everything was very stressful, and I just needed to let go. And so it came from sexy, pleasure vibes, but it was very ethereal. You can listen to it on Spotify, very esoteric. I decided to make it into a psychedelic anthem because I was doing a lot of psychedelic journeys, and I thought everyone who leans into doing psychedelics gets scared at one moment or another, where the experience is overwhelming or the experience is unusual or unfamiliar, and there's this sense of wanting to cling on to reality as you know it, but reality as you know it doesn't exist in the psychedelic world. And so the only thing that you can do is let go and surrender. So when I wrote the song with my producer Heather Christie on Moonbabe Records, when we produced it together, the vision was a psychedelic anthem. Well, then it turned out that a few months later, my dad was in a diabetic coma and was dying, and I got to be at his bedside, and I got to sing that song to him as he died. So the very last thing my dad heard was "Let Go, Surrender." And so this song that I thought like came out of like Sexy Birth ended up being the song that my dad died to, and is also now out in the world as like a psychedelic anthem. And so it just goes to show you that you never know the impact or the way that a song will land or where it will be needed.
It's like a full journey for that song too, which is incredible.
Totally.
And who knows, it might evolve even from there. You never know. It's still out in the world, so we'll see what happens. But okay, we're down to the last few questions here. These are ones I ask on every single episode. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago and give yourself any advice at all, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Well, 10 years ago, I was doing a Fulbright in Taiwan. I was doing an English teaching assistantship there. And I would have definitely practiced more Chinese and given myself over to the music in Taiwan. I think that I definitely wish that I, like the guitar, the ukulele, I play harmonium, I play a lot of things now. And if I could go back in time 10 years, I would have picked up the instruments and the music even more there and brought it forward with me.
Yeah. That's incredible too. A lot of amazing instruments too. So
the erhu is my favorite. It's so incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And if we flip that question then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself in, obviously your coaching, your music, but in life in general?
Well, my big life vision is to be a sought-after global ceremony musician and guide. I love singing music for ayahuasca ceremonies. I love holding my own medicine journeys, and to be able in 10 years to be traveling the world to beautiful tropical places and to own my own beautiful tropical place that people can come to me and offering my music, my meditations, my healing work, all of it for people on a global scale. Yeah. That's what I am here for.
Yeah. Where's the dream house location then, or just location in general?
Yeah. I mean,
where would that be?
It would 100% be in Hawaii.
Yeah. I kind of figured.
I lived in Maui for 5 years, and Maui will always be home.
Yeah. I kind of figured. You said tropical, and I'm like, she's definitely thinking Hawaii for sure.
Or Bali. I would be happy in Bali too.
Okay, yeah, either one. Like I said, anything with that type of weather, let's do it, for sure. So, but again, amazing goals. And do you have any final words of wisdom? I feel like you've shared a lot of great wisdom today. Anything you want to leave people with before we get out of here?
Well, I think if you've resonated with what I've been saying, I have a ton of words of wisdom on this app called Insight Timer. I'm a featured meditation teacher on there. I have over 200 guided meditations, talks, and courses, and I have about 1 million plays of my music. I call it what I do musitation, so musical meditations. And so there's a lot of wisdom on there, so go check it out. And I look forward to, hearing if you can tell me, podcast listeners, how something has impacted you. It always means the world to me to hear from people.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And thank you again, Victoria. I appreciate you so much for stopping by today, sharing a lot of great stuff. And I've never had a guest that shared the type of things you shared today, and I love it because that's the type of show we're doing here. And I love having new, unique people come by. And you're welcome back anytime. So I really appreciate you for giving the time today, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening today. That was episode 276. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send us any funds. And feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you next week. Thanks everyone.